Okay, my name is George Lowery. I'm originally from New York City, born and raised in the Bronx, New York. I've been building ship models now for about 28 years. Started when I was a police officer in the town of Newcastle and Chappaqua, New York. I met a gentleman by the name of Frank Mastini, who was a master ship model builder, who let me apprentice with him. The way I got involved was in 1987, my son Robert sent me a kit of a ship model as a Christmas gift. After building that, I was looking for someone to teach me how to do it. I went all around New York City trying to find someone to instruct me in the art of ship model building, and was unable to come up with anyone until I ran into Mr. Mastini through a mutual friend of ours. Mr. Mastini was a former Italian Navy during World War II, and he felt that he owed this country something since he was fighting against the United States during World War II. So he decided to take on as many people as wanted to learn the art of ship model building. I studied under Mr. Mastini for approximately 3.5 to 4 years, and then went out on my own. I used to build from kits when I originally started, and after maybe 5 years I decided I wanted to learn scratch building. So I started just buying plans and making my own parts and building from scratch. And I've been doing that ever since. I'm currently working on the ship behind me, which is called the Wanderer, which is a whaling ship from the 1800s. And I sent away for plans from the New Bedford Museum in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I've been building from plans I have on the wall in front of me. You can't see them right now. But right now I'm just finishing up on the whale boats. The individual whale boats, it has 6 whale boats on the ship itself. And this is one of the 6 whale boats that will be mounted on the ship when it's completed. The other 5 are here. I'm still working on those. I just finished making all of the oars. This is one of the oars that I made. It's not complete, but the rest of them are complete. You can see the oars. And right now I'm getting ready to start making the harpoons. And I don't know if you can see those, but they're tied together. That's 2 separate harpoons. I sent to the Bedford Whaling Museum for photographs of the actual Wanderer, and they sent me photos online, and I've been working with original plans that they sent me along with these photographs for more detail. And as I said, the whaling ships, the whale boats themselves, I went online, I got photographs of whaling boats, along with the plans that I got from Model Expo of a whale boat, and with these photos from online of whale boats and the plans, I was actually able to start building the whale boats. Right now, up to this point, this is one of the harpoons. Gives me an idea of how to make the harpoons. But up to this point, I have 1,430 hours into this particular craft. I anticipate maybe another 3 months, hopefully, to completion. And after that, I'll start a new project. I keep track of all of my hours in this book. This is my log book. And this is the whale ship Wanderer. It started on April 29th, 2017. And I stopped working, of course, up to yesterday. And give you an idea of how many hours to make an oar. To make all 25 oars, let's see, I began turning the oars on the 24th, 6, 11, 21, 26, about 26 hours to make all of the oars.
To make all the oars?
Yes. So I can't tell you how long it takes to make one, just all of them. Okay, what you see here are two of the harpoons that I made. I tied them together so that they would mount on the boat itself. And they have a harpoon mount. Like so. But they will sit like so when I'm finished with them.
Right.
In order to make a harpoon, I cut this piece of wood from a board that I have. The board is the length that you see. It's about 1 inch thick and maybe about 5 to 6 inches wide. Once I cut this stock, then I cut it down to a smaller piece like this on a miniature table saw. Once I get it down to this size, I cut it into square stock like this, and then I put this square stock into my Dremel drill. Hold it like this, get some sandpaper, wrap it around the stick itself, turn on the Dremel, and just very slowly let it turn until I get a small round stick. Once I have this stick, I take my drill bits, miniature drill bits. As you can see, it's a set, various sizes, and I take the smallest one that I have and I drill a hole in the tip of this turned stick. Once I get that hole in, I take a piece of metal wire, which is very sturdy, and I insert that into the hole that I drilled on this particular stick. Once I drill that, I take a piece of brass stock and I cut it into a small triangle, and that would be the top, and then I would solder that tip to that piece of stock that I showed you. That would be inserted into the wood, and you have a basic harpoon. And then I'd wrap string around it to make the handles or the grips for the harpoon itself. That's how you make those. And it's time consuming. It's not a simple task, but it takes patience and time, and I enjoy it, so it doesn't bother me at all. As a matter of fact, I find it very relaxing. This particular ship, as I said, is a whaling ship. It's a double planked hull. It's plank on bulkhead, which means that I make individual bulkheads instead of ribs for the ship to give it its shape. Once I give it the shape with the bulkheads and the keel is what runs down the middle. This is the keel here, and runs throughout the ship in this particular situation. Once I get that skeleton, then I plank it. I cut individual planks from, again, stock like I showed you before, and plank the ship, which gives the hull its shape. sand it smooth, and then I double plank it. I plank it again with another layer of wood. In this particular case, I planked it with ebony wood because the ship was actually painted black. I like to use natural woods if I can, whenever I can. So this particular ship was planked in ebony, which is, this is a piece of ebony, which again, once again, comes off of a board. And ebony wood is naturally black. It comes from Africa, and it's a natural black wood. It has tinges of brown in it, which is nice because it looks like, for me, a ship that's been painted and worn. And you can see some of the bare wood showing through. Once the ship is planked, then this particular ship is copper plated. The reason they plated these ships with copper was to keep barnacles from eating the wood and the hull. It would last longer. It gave off copper dioxide or copper oxide I believe it is, when it met with the salt water, and the barnacles wouldn't stick to it. They didn't like it. Once the ship is planked and coppered, then I start laying the deck. The deck is individual pieces of wood, just like a real deck. And once the deck is laid, I start making the parts that go on the deck. In this case here is the windlass, which is a mechanism for raising and lowering the anchor, sometimes used to pull heavy things that you want to put on the ship with winches and whatnot. It's actually a winch. Then you have a forward cabin, and in this particular case, the cabin doors open, the top slides back. These are little things that I like to do on my ship models. Underneath here is the stove of the ship. I can give you an example of what the stove looks like. This was one that I was making for the ship, and I didn't like the way it was coming out, so I put this one aside and started over again to make the stove. And the stove was what they used to boil the whale blubber to make whale oil, which they used for fuel in those days. Back here on the ship, if you can see, I don't know if you can see that, right in here is the chicken coop where they kept their chickens and geese for food when they were away from port. Next we have one of the hatches. The hatches here allowed air and light to go down below the decks. It also opened up for cargo to go beneath, and they also had covers to cover the hatch in inclement weather. Again, I don't know if you can see those, but and then you have a pin rail here for tying your lines. When you see on this particular one here, you have lines tied on the pin rail on the mast itself. And this is a pin rail that you can tie more lines on. This is another cabin here, and it actually opens and closes. There are stairs that go down below. Then we come to this area here. This was the vegetable bin. This is where they kept all their fresh vegetables when they were at sea. It was opened so fresh air could keep the vegetables fresh. Come to the third mast and another pin rail here. And then underneath here we have a skylight that also let light go down below and enabled crewmen to see down below also from the deck. Then we have a deck house here, and in the rear of the ship, right in here, we had the wheel that steered the ship, turned the rudder. Then the name of the ship and New Bedford. And then I was working on the rigging. The bowsprit rigged. I rigged this foremast and yards, and I stopped because I had to make those whaleboats to fit them in different areas. Excuse me one second. There's another cover that I made that goes over the vegetable bin and that cabin below. And these whaleboats there are two of them that will sit on top of this. They will be tied on top. There are what they call davits, D-A-V-I-T-S. I'll show you an example of a davit. This is a davit, and this will go on the side of the ship back here, and there'll be two of them, and a whaleboat will hang from the davits, like so. So all of this, I try to make it as authentic as possible. It actually worked just like the real ship. If you put this on the water, it was real, everything would work. With this one, everything would work also if you pulled different lines and utilized the tools for dropping the whale ships into the water. To me, it's just a love to work these things, to build these things. So far to date, I have built approximately 30 vessels. Some of them are large vessels. I've built some small boats. I used to sell them years ago when my wife and I opened up an art gallery in Sarasota, Florida after I retired from my job. We did that for about 6 years, and then we moved out here to Arizona, where I continued to build, and I keep them in my home. For me, it's the pleasure of building them, and I love looking at them and enjoying them. So, as I said, I will just continue building and enjoying this craft for as long as I can, turning out as beautiful a model as I can possibly turn out. I'm learning every day. When I did those whaleboats, I'd never done anything like that before, and that was really an experience. So every time I do a ship model, I learn some more. I am not an avid reader of the history of ships, but I do have a lot of research books that I use over here. So if someone asks me specifically, what is this or what is that, sometimes I'll have to refer to the books, because I am building from what I see and not from what I know. But I do learn from the building, and I enjoy learning as well as almost as much as building.